something.
Yeah, you'd be amazed if you were just to take a plate of food and put it by a window. The position you put yourself in when the light comes in completely changes if you were to stand here and have the light come from a different direction. So if any of you are struggling in a way, wondering why your pictures may be flat, you don't have that depth or that dynamic, don't think about buying a new camera or a new lens. Change your position. That's the first thing they say, right? I think I need to buy a new camera. I think I need a new lens. No, we're not talking about tools here, we're talking about concepts. Change your body. You'll see an amazing difference.
So actually, this applies to everything. It doesn't matter if you're shooting with your iPhone or if you're shooting with, a top-end DSLR that's worth more than your car, which...
There are many expensive cameras. So here's an example here.
So this one is about like 2 o'clock light or so. So you can kind of see it's kind of like wrapping over her shoulder. The lights, the light was setting. Starts to catch up the highlights of the hair. So her face is actually a little bit in shadow, but because it's more of a softer light, so it's at the end of the day, the light isn't as harsh, then the shadows are still kind of nice and a little bit light, so it comes off well like in these things.
And the projector kind of doesn't really highlight the difference so much. If you really want to see it, you're welcome to come up to our computer afterwards to really see the difference in the lighting situation.
So now just by, the subject is going to stay the same. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's say he was that pretty Georgia right there, and this was the light that we wanted to come from the 3 o'clock. So if we wanted to use a little bit more backlight, I would just turn here. You see, I've just rotated myself about 3 steps to the left, and now the light is coming from the back, so it's more backlight. And this is essentially what you would get. So there's a little bit more difference. In the photo, we're going to show you a comparison. You can see a little bit more comparison. There's a little bit more drama with the backlight, more highlights and shadows, dark and light. A lot of people are afraid, like, well, the front is kind of so dark, I need to fill it up. You don't really need to see it on the screen to understand, but sometimes that play of light and dark is okay, because that creates drama, it creates tension, and it creates emotion in an image. So although sometimes you feel like I always have to have the light straight on to have full bright light, it isn't always necessarily so. Don't be afraid to have a little bit of that play of dark and light, okay?
And you see, it's like as you get more towards that 12 o'clock light, you see how it kind of catches through her hair? It's like that's what that backlight starts doing. It'll, capture...
There's another one too.
So, it captures a little bit of highlights now. When it's wrapped around the side though, it catches a little bit more of the side of her head. So you get a little bit more of a feel for her hair versus the light just kind of capturing, going through it. So each one has its own purpose, and you might like one, you might like both. But just know that it's like just by changing that little bit, it's like it starts giving you a little bit of a different image, so you can get a little bit more of the feel that you're looking for.
People always say, what's better? And there's no such thing as better in photography. What's a better light? What's a better subject? The answer is what you like the best and what resonates with you and what resonates with your viewers. So for these, some people absolutely love more the front light and the side light, which is great. Other people love the back light because they love the drama and the tension. When I'm shooting portraiture, I love a little bit of the back because I love that contrast. I do love it because to me, it makes the image so much more exciting. And there's some people that don't like backlight. So again, you decide what you like. There's no wrong, no right or wrong. I need to emphasize that a lot. So it's all good. It's all good.
So there's kind of a quick reference into just general composition. A lot of times when we talk about composition, these are artistic theories.
Yeah, basic concepts.
Artistic principles that have pretty much like gone back for the longest time. You look back in old Renaissance painting, you'll find a lot of these same sort of things still happening. Our history majors will know these concepts almost off they get ingrained into them. One would be rule of thirds. So if you take something and then you break it down into thirds, both up and down, at those points of intersection on those are usually points if you put your subject there within the composition, it tends to bring a little bit more interest to it. It's like if it's dead center, it'll feel much different than if it's broken off into one of those edges of the thirds.
So like when you're composing, a lot of times when they think, oh, just stand right there when you take your picture, most likely when we start off, we would most likely think framing them right in the center would be most logical because it balances. But again, when he talks about the rule of thirds, there's that energy within a frame that if you were to offset them to the side, either top left, right, bottom left, and right, energy and synergy there. It's a kind of a, what's that word? It's kind of a Zen.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty. The technical thing, but yeah, it is. And I'll show you.
And then there's also positive negative space. And that's basically how much of your subject is filling up the frame, and then how much is just empty space where you can kind of let it breathe. So you don't have to, if you have a subject, a person as your subject, you don't have to have them fill up everything. There can be a nice blank open palette next to them, and it gives them and the photograph space to breathe.
So for example here, like especially with the positive and negative space. Negative space is keeping the space unfilled, keeping it empty. And there's something very inherently beautiful about that. Sometimes we feel so like natural that we feel like we keep having to fill the frame with something. More people, more trees, more flowers. But sometimes less is more. Actually, a lot of times less is more in photography. So looking at this in this frame, when we shot this, we want to make sure they're in a place that was non-distracting because we wanted to isolate the subject. So for positive and negative space, we didn't need to fill a scene with flowers and rocks and trees in the background. We felt that we wanted it to be as empty as possible. Because what does it do? It allows you to focus on the moment that these two people are having with each other. And that, again, that in itself is very important in composition. So don't always feel like you need to fill each corner of the frame with something. And again, we kind of talked about positive and negative space. They're kind of offset to the left of it. Oh, rule of thirds. Offset to the left of it. Because what it is, it adds a different type of balance and energy to the photo. You're able to see, kind of peek in and see them in their own moment, and knowing that there's something else that's going around them at the same time.
And then also every photograph, and we kind of go back to what we talked about previously, direction of light. Every photograph is going to tell you where the direction of light is.
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at the shadows. So like if we look at this one, we can kind of see like where the light's hitting her, especially where it's hitting her hair, and where the shadows are falling. And so from that, you can then basically diagnose, like, I know where the light's coming from this image. So start thinking about when you look at photographs and you find ones that you just think, oh my God, this is just gorgeous. Look and see what direction the light's coming from. So that way when you go take photographs, you can use that same sort of concept into it to know what you like with when you see it. So that way when you go to take it, you can get that same sort of look.
So this one is backlight. I shot this one. I love backlight. Todd calls it a girly light, but to me it's just beautiful. I love
the hair so pretty.
I do. I love that contrast. I love tension in an image. I love having the bright against the dark.
I just don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Well, you don't. But I love the dimension because to me that contrast of light dark gives depth to an image, and it gives me a feeling of space where I can look even further past the subject. And the same thing with rule of thirds. This is Georgia Pellegrini shooting her with her dogs, and I know there's 3 subjects there. We really wanted to be able to, again, isolate them. And rather than, there's a beautiful scene, there's a ton of stuff going around, but we really wanted to isolate her in the field, just like that. No other distractions. And to us, you can see the relationship between her and how happy she is with her dogs.
And so also, one other thing which kind of helps us
We shot in Texas Hill Country as a matter of fact.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that helps alleviate that distraction is kind of notice like where the horizon lies. So that way the horizon is, we've shot it from an angle where it's like it pretty much will cover that up. And even back on the last one too. So see how the horizon is on that one. Now imagine the same shot if it was shot a little bit different to where that horizon was cutting right through the middle of them. It would give you a much different look. So in this case, it's like those angles when you're going for up and down are also as important as going left to right too.
And always move, because I'm 5'4". If I photographed every image at my same 5'4", it will always look the same. And a lot of people say that, why do they always look the same? And I think, have you ever tried like getting really low? Because if you get really low, it brings height. If you get really high up, down, or top down, it gives a different feeling too. So don't ever feel like always stand still. We want to see you all moving around, That's what's really going to bring life to the image, like a boxer. Yeah, that would be.
It is like you're standing on something or you're crouching down. One of the biggest things we usually take first when we go on a shoot is a step stool, because it's like it enables us to change that. Or else we're grabbing a chair, kicking our shoes,
Right.
Too rude, and then
If you're wearing your cute high heels, you love them, take them off. Just for the shoot. Okay. We're going to go over